A millionaire paid a street vendor to have his child, but when he saw the baby's face, he froze. It was a Wednesday, one of those sun-drunk, dust-heavy Austin afternoons where the city seemed to pulse with sticky heat and secrets. Cars crawled past under the weight of the sun. Music from a mariachi busker echoed off a red brick wall, and the world kept spinning, uncaring of the woman whose life was cracking quietly in the shadow of a taco truck. Savannah Cole stood behind the counter of her truck, Taco Saints, dressed in a faded apron and a loose ponytail that had given up the fight hours ago. Her eyes were tired, not the kind of tired that comes from work, but the bone-deep exhaustion of grief wearing the mask of resilience. Her father had died 8 weeks ago, pancreatic cancer. Fast, ruthless. The medical bills, God, the bills. They didn't just pile up. They grew teeth and shredded everything she'd built. The bank was threatening foreclosure. The hospital had sent another final notice, the third one this week. Her father's ashes were in a ceramic jar in the truck's glove box because she couldn't afford a plot. And yet, she kept making tacos. Because people needed to eat. And she needed to survive. She was rolling dough for handmade tortillas when she felt it. That peculiar sensation of being watched. Not in a creepy way, but in that something's about to happen way. She turned. There, standing beneath the awning, dressed in a tailored navy suit with a black dress shirt open at the collar, was Jackson Whitmore. She didn't know who he was. Not yet. Not really. But something about him. The way he carried silence like a blade. The way his green eyes looked through people rather than at them, made her breath catch. He was devastatingly handsome in a cold, moneyed way. The kind of man who never had to raise his voice to ruin someone. The kind of man who'd never waited in a line. The kind of man who could make a girl forget who she was with just one look, and then make her regret remembering. Savannah wiped her hands on her apron and forced a smile. "Can I help you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at her, really looked. Not at her messy ponytail or the flower on her cheek. At her eyes. Her soul. "You're Savannah Cole." It wasn't a question. Yeah, that's me." She laughed awkwardly. "We met." No, he reached into the breast pocket of his jacket and pulled out a black leather checkbook. "But I've read about you, and I know what happened to your father." Something in her chest twisted. "I'm sorry for your loss," he added. Savannah's throat tightened. "Thanks," she said, barely a whisper. Then he said it, just like that. "I want to offer you $2 million to have my child." Silence. The wind stilled. The world stopped spinning. Somewhere, the mariachi violinist played a wrong note. She blinked. Thought she'd heard wrong. "I'm sorry." Jackson stepped closer. "This isn't a joke. I'll give you $2 million. You will carry the child, sign a full release. No custody, no involvement. 1 year of your life. Financial freedom for the rest of it." Savannah stared at him like he'd just suggested she jump off a bridge for a Snickers bar. "Is this a prank? Are there cameras?" "No cameras." His tone was so calm, so matter-of-fact, it made it all the more unhinged. "I'm not a surrogate," she snapped. "I know." "Then why me?" He hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough to suggest the question hurt. "Because you're clean. Not just medically. Clean in the way people aren't anymore. I need someone who has nothing to gain. Someone who won't come for more later. You don't want fame. You don't want revenge. You want to live. And that's what I'm offering." Savannah couldn't breathe. Her hand gripped the edge of the truck's counter to stop herself from shaking. "Why don't you ask one of your rich friends to do this? Or pay a clinic?" His jaw twitched. For the first time, there was a flicker of something human in his expression. "Because I can't trust them." "Why not?" He didn't answer. Not then. Not yet. Savannah's heart thundered in her chest. The logical part of her screamed to say no. That this man was dangerous. That money like that always came with a price she couldn't afford. That this was insane. But the other part, the broken, grieving, terrified part, saw her father's bills. The eviction notice taped to her apartment door. The sick feeling every time she had to ask for an extension. And most of all, she thought of the child she might never have on her own. Of the family she'd lost. The dream that had died the day her dad did. And so, she didn't say no. "Not right away. Let me think about it. You have until tomorrow night. I leave for Manhattan Sunday morning. If it's not you, I'll find someone else." She nodded, lips pressed into a line. As he turned to go, she called out, "What's the baby for?" He paused. "To save me," he said. Then he walked away. That night, Savannah didn't sleep. She watched her father's last video message over and over. The one where he smiled through the pain and told her, "Baby girl, whatever happens, don't lose your heart. Don't let this world take that away from you." And yet, didn't saving her heart mean saving herself? Was there anything wrong with surviving? When she showed up at the hotel the next day and signed the contract, her hand shaking as she agreed to bring a life into the world in exchange for money, she felt something snap. She didn't cry, not until she got back to the truck. Then she cried so hard she choked on it. Jackson, in his penthouse, watched her name scrawl on the dotted line and exhaled. A slow, cold breath, one she'd never see. And somewhere deep inside him, behind the walls and the lies and the ash of everything he'd burned to get here, a part of him whispered, "You'll regret this." But he ignored it, because regret was for the weak. And he wasn't weak. Not anymore. There were two kinds of nights in Jackson Whitmore's life. The ones where he couldn't sleep, and the ones where he didn't want to. This one, the night after Savannah Cole signed the contract that would tether them together for a year, was both. From the 27th floor of the Whitmore Tower, the city of Austin glowed beneath him. Neon, quiet traffic, the faraway hum of nightlife. Jackson stood shirtless, staring out the window, a crystal glass of bourbon in one hand, a legal contract in the other. The ink was still fresh. Savannah's signature looped in careful, almost uncertain cursive. There were tiny smudges of flour on the page, from her hands, no doubt. She hadn't even cleaned up before signing away a year of her body, her future, her dignity. A lump caught in his throat. He took a long sip of bourbon. He had to remind himself, this wasn't personal. This was about legacy, about survival, about winning. But her eyes, they haunted him. Honest eyes, the kind that hadn't learned how to lie yet. You didn't deserve her truth, something inside him whispered. But Jackson didn't believe in deserve. Not anymore. That belief had died 2 years ago, on the cold marble floor of his father's office in Houston, the day the old man read his final will aloud, not with love, but with disdain. "You've always been a disappointment," Harold Whitmore said as he signed the document with trembling hands. "But if you want what's left of this empire, you'll earn it. With blood, with family. The first grandchild takes it all." Jackson had stood in silence, jaw tight, fists clenched, eyes burning. That was Harold's way, love twisted into a punishment. He hadn't wanted a son. He'd wanted a soldier. Jackson had spent 37 years proving he could be both. And still, the prize dangled out of reach. And the moment he thought he had it all, he lost everything. Brooke Carrington, fiancé, model, manipulator, the woman he thought would complete the image his father demanded. She had the right name, the right connections, the right smile for the gala photographers. But inside, ice and razors. Their love had curdled months before she discovered his secret meetings with investors behind her back. That night, in a storm of slaps and shouting, she threw a crystal decanter at his head and told him she'd booked an appointment. She was pregnant, and she didn't want to be. When Jackson refused to fund the abortion, she disappeared for a week. She returned in silk and sin, and told him she'd taken care of it. But what came next was the real wound. 3 months later, during a checkup, Jackson's doctor gently told him the truth. There's damage to the vas deferens. Scar tissue. You won't be able to conceive naturally. Silence. Fury. Then shame. That night, he put a fist through the bathroom mirror. Not out of self-pity, but out of pure rage that something so fragile, so essential to a man's identity, had been taken without consent. Not by nature, not by accident, but by someone who knew how to hurt. He couldn't tell anyone. Not Margot, not his board, not his so-called friends. In his world, masculinity was the currency, and infertility was a bankruptcy he couldn't afford. That's when the plan was born. A child, a legacy, one last power move. But not with another woman from his world, not with another Brooke. He needed someone invisible, honest, clean, disposable. Savannah had been a fluke, a food truck, a moment. But she had that quiet dignity that made you feel like your soul had been seen and judged, but not hated. She reminded him of something he'd forgotten existed. Maybe of the person he used to be. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was the baby, the air, and the fact that time was running out. That night, as the city flickered below, Jackson opened the safe in his closet. Inside was a sealed manila envelope. He pulled it out, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened it. Inside, ultrasound photos. Brooks. He had kept them. He didn't know why. Maybe to punish himself. Maybe to remember that there had once been life tied to him, blood and breath, that he'd never meet. He touched the corner of the sonogram with 2 fingers, closed his eyes, and whispered to no one, "I'm sorry." Then he ripped the photos in half. Meanwhile, miles away, Savannah lay curled up on her apartment floor. The couch was too hard. The bed reminded her of her father. So she laid on the ground, a pillow under her head, staring up at the cracked ceiling, clutching the check like it was a life preserver. She'd already deposited it. $500,000 now, the rest after birth. But the paper still felt heavier than any brick. She wasn't crying. She had cried enough already. She just felt empty, like someone had scooped her out and replaced her with silence. Was this what selling your body felt like? Or was this different? She told herself it was. That it wasn't prostitution. That it was a deal. A business arrangement. A sacrifice for survival. But deep down, her heart whispered things she didn't want to hear. She thought of Jackson's eyes. Cold. Calculated. But also, for a split second, lonely. Who was this man who needed to buy a baby? Who couldn't trust anyone? What kind of father would he be? She didn't know. She didn't want to know. She just needed to get through this year. Get her father a headstone. Get out of debt. Maybe go back to school. Maybe move to Portland. Maybe forget this ever happened. She pressed her hand over her belly. It was still flat. Still hers. But not for long. At that very hour, in a glass-paneled estate overlooking a private vineyard in Napa, Margot Whitmore stood in a dark room, a phone to her ear, staring out into the night. "He found someone," said the voice on the other end. "He's going through with it." Margot exhaled a long, slow breath. Her face, elegant, chiseled, eternal, twisted into a frown. "I told him," she said coldly. "A bastard child is still a bastard. I won't allow it. You want me to intervene?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the framed photo on the mantel, a family portrait. Jackson, Caleb, and Harold, all in suits, all pretending. Her fingers traced Caleb's face. "You know what happened last time?" she whispered. A pause. "Keep me informed." She hung up and poured herself a glass of wine. If Jackson thought he could manipulate legacy, he had another thing coming. The Whitmore name would be clean, even if it killed them all. Savannah Cole had always thought pregnancy would feel like something soft, warm flutterings, glowing skin, that dreamy hum of new life. But now, 3 months in, all she felt was trapped. Her body ached constantly. Her nausea came in waves so violent, she'd cried over a bathroom floor more times than she could count. Her back hurt, her cravings were erratic, and her emotions swung like a wrecking ball through her chest. She'd once wept uncontrollably because a bag of popcorn wouldn't open. But none of that compared to the ache in her soul, because she was doing this alone. Or, at least, she thought she was. That changed the morning Jackson knocked on her door. Not her phone, not a messenger, not his assistant. He, in person, holding a bag of groceries. She blinked. "What are you doing here?" He shifted on his feet, like a man uncomfortable with his own intentions. "You weren't returning messages." She stepped back, arms crossed. "So you thought a surprise visit was the way to fix that?" Jackson didn't answer. Instead, he walked into the small apartment like he had every right. The walls were bare. The floor still showed the water damage from last month's plumbing leak. A single couch sat against the wall, its stuffing peeking out from a ripped seam. He placed the bag on the counter. Bananas, ginger tea, prenatal vitamins, saltines, 2 jars of peanut butter, and a bottle of sparkling apple cider. "Thought you might be out of groceries." She stared at him. "You didn't strike me as the thoughtful type." "I'm not." "Then why are you here?" A long pause. One of those silences that stretched so far it began to breathe. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. "I've been thinking about you." Her heart did a strange, painful thing. Like a string being plucked too hard. She wanted to scream. Laugh. Cry. Hug him. Slap him. Because how dare he say something so vulnerable with such a straight face? "You paid me to carry your child, Jackson," she said, her voice trembling. "That doesn't entitle you to me." "I know." His answer was so quiet, she almost didn't hear it. "And yet you're here," she whispered. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "This thing. Caring. Checking in. Being soft. I wasn't raised with it. I wasn't taught it. But you're carrying my child. And I look at you, and He stopped himself. "I just needed to see you were okay." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, angry at herself for letting him see. You don't get to play knight in shining armor when you're the one who tied me to the tracks. He nodded. I know. She wanted to believe him. But trust was a currency she'd spent too freely before. And now she was bankrupt. Still, she let him stay. He made her tea, sat across from her on the couch, awkward and stiff, while she told him about the morning's sickness and her irrational hatred of the smell of soap. And for the first time, Savannah saw a man trying, really trying, to be present. Not because of a contract, not because of guilt, but because something inside him had shifted. Because he cared. Maybe. That was more terrifying than if he didn't. Later that night, after he left, she opened the bathroom cabinet and stared at the ultrasound picture taped inside. A tiny bean of a baby. Their baby. She pressed her palm against her stomach. What are you bringing into, little one? She whispered. She didn't know. And across town, Jackson didn't either. Because at that very moment, in a smoky rooftop lounge 3 blocks from Whitmore Tower, Brooke Carrington was laughing into a martini glass. She looked radiant, red lips, emerald dress, golden hair that shimmered under the lights like fire. To anyone watching, she was a woman in control. But beneath the table, her fingers were clenched so tightly around her phone that the screen cracked. She had seen the surveillance photo. Jackson, on Savannah's porch, carrying groceries. Smiling, no, almost smiling. That was new. That was dangerous. Because if he was starting to feel, he might start to confess. And if he started confessing, everything could unravel. She stood abruptly, tossing a $100 bill on the table, and walked toward the elevator. As she descended 32 floors, her reflection in the mirrored walls morphed from socialite to predator. By the time she stepped into the black car waiting outside, she was no longer laughing. Take me to her, she told the driver. But Miss Carrington, he now. Savannah opened her door to a knock 5 minutes later and found herself face-to-face with the woman from the tabloids. The ex, the model, the one who once had Jackson's ring on her finger. And behind that dazzling smile was something sharp. Hi, Brooke said sweetly. You must be the oven. Savannah froze. Excuse me. Well, I'm assuming he told you what this really is, right? A transaction. A contract. A temporary inconvenience to solve a permanent problem. Savannah stiffened. What do you want? Brooke took a step forward, eyes glittering. To warn you, Jackson doesn't save people. He uses them, fills them up with hope, then leaves them emptier than before. He did it to me. He'll do it to you. I'm not you. No, you're worse. You think you're different. That's the most dangerous kind of woman. Because women like you believe in fairy tales. And Jackson? He doesn't come with a happily ever after. He comes with consequences. Savannah didn't respond. She just slowly closed the door in Brooke's face. But her heart was racing. Because some part of her knew Brooke wasn't entirely lying. It rained the day Savannah went into labor. Not just a drizzle, a violent, howling storm that shook the windows and darkened the skies over Austin like the heavens themselves were cracking open. The wind screamed through the city. Trees bent low, power flickered, thunder rolled in waves that rattled every rooftop. Savannah's scream came just before dawn, curled in her bed, soaked in sweat, clutching the edge of her pillow like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the earth. It's too early, she gasped, tears falling. It's not time yet. But Liam had other plans. The pain came in waves, tidal, endless, cruel. Her breath shortened, then vanished. Her fingers trembled as she called the number Jackson had given her, her thumbs slipping on the screen through tears. A cold, robotic voice answered first, a security detail. And then his voice, still groggy, still cold. But he heard her panic. I'm on my way, he said. And for the first time in weeks, it didn't sound like a promise. It sounded like a prayer. She was rushed to the hospital by private transport. The storm howled around them. Thunder cracked, so loud it felt like the world might split in two. The rain was so thick it blurred the city into watercolor. Savannah didn't care. She was in too much pain. Her body convulsed with fear and agony. She cried out for her father, for strength, for peace. But all she got was more pain, more contractions, until the screams became one long, aching sob in the back of her throat. By the time Jackson arrived, soaked through, shirt clinging to his chest, shoes ruined, she was already being wheeled into delivery. She saw him for a moment. Just a flash. He looked terrified. And then she was gone. A blur of white walls. Fluorescent lights. Cold fingers. Voices she didn't recognize. A nurse saying, "She's dilating too fast. We need to move now." Time twisted. Reality blurred. And then, everything went silent. Jackson paced the waiting room like a man on trial. His wet shirt clung to his back, his blazer discarded on a chair. His phone buzzed endlessly. Calls from Margot, from lawyers, from Brooke. He ignored them all. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. A nurse passed by, smiling kindly. "Would you like some water?" He looked at her like she'd offered him cyanide. No, then the door opened. The doctor entered, face unreadable. "It was difficult," she said. "But both mother and baby are stable." He didn't breathe, just nodded. "Would you like to see him?" He nodded again. Words wouldn't come. The doctor led him down the hallway, step by step, closer to something he couldn't name, something he hadn't dared to imagine. The door opened. Savannah lay in the bed, pale, exhausted, tears still drying on her cheeks. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of footsteps. "He's right there," she whispered, barely audible. In the bassinet. Jackson approached slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last, like gravity was punishing him for the life he'd tried to control. And then he saw him, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, tiny fists curled by his cheeks, a wrinkled, red face, soft breathing, a miracle. He leaned closer. The baby stirred, opened his eyes, and Jackson froze. Time stopped. Air evaporated. His knees nearly gave out. Because those eyes, those impossible, unexplainable, horrifyingly familiar eyes, stared back at him with the weight of a ghost. Sea glass green, with that tiny gold fleck in the left iris. Jackson knew those eyes, had loved those eyes, had lost those eyes. They belonged to Caleb, his brother, his dead brother. His hands began to tremble. He stepped back like he'd been slapped. "What's wrong?" Savannah asked softly. Jackson couldn't speak. He just kept looking at the baby, at those eyes, at the echo of a boy who drowned 15 years ago, or was said to. His heart pounded so loud it made his ears ring. "Jackson?" Savannah asked again, this time sitting up. "What is it?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. All he could do was walk backward, one step, then another, until he hit the wall. He looked at Savannah, but he didn't see her. He saw Caleb, laughing on the dock that summer, running barefoot through the vineyards, whispering secrets about a girl he wasn't supposed to love. His chest tightened. He couldn't breathe. He turned and walked out without another word. Savannah stared at the door. It didn't move. He didn't come back. She looked down at her son. He was perfect, tiny, beautiful, but something in Jackson's face haunted her. That wasn't the look of a man overwhelmed by joy or fear. It was the look of a man who'd seen a ghost. She held her baby tighter and began to cry. Later that night, Jackson sat alone in his penthouse. The city lights blurred beneath the storm. His whiskey sat untouched. He stared at an old photo, faded, frayed at the edges. Him and Caleb, arms around each other, smiling, younger, before the family fell apart, before Caleb fell in love with the wrong girl, before he drowned in the lake behind their mother's house, before Margot Whitmore closed the casket herself and whispered, "This is for the best." But Jackson had always wondered, always suspected. Now there was proof, in a baby's eyes. And suddenly, the whole deal with Savannah felt like a trap, like someone had known, had planned this, had lied to him. And worst of all, that baby might not be his. The DNA kit arrived in a plain brown envelope, unmarked, no return address, just like Jackson had requested. He didn't open it right away. He stared at it. For 3 days. It sat on his desk like a ticking bomb, harmless, silent, devastating. He walked around it, past it, poured whiskey next to it. Once even reached for it only to pull his hand back like it burned. He couldn't bring himself to touch it, because he already knew the truth. But knowing and confirming are two different kinds of destruction. The morning he finally opened it, the world was quiet. Too quiet. Savannah hadn't called in 2 days. She said she needed space. He told her he understood. But inside, something festered. A fear, a guilt, a gnawing sense that the walls were starting to close in. He swabbed the inside of the baby's cheek while Savannah was asleep, the soft rhythm of her breathing slicing him in half. He whispered, "I'm sorry," as he sealed the kit, and he sent it off. 2 days later, the results arrived. A match, 0%. Jackson stared at the screen. No reaction, no breath, no sound, just stillness. Then laughter. Quiet, bitter, hollow. A sound that didn't belong to him. He had built his life on control, on power, on certainty. Now he was a man with a child who wasn't his, with a contract that meant nothing, with a woman who had unknowingly carried another man's blood. But it was the eyes, those impossible, damning eyes, that haunted him most. He couldn't forget them. They followed him in mirrors, in dreams, in the baby's first cries. They weren't just Caleb's. They were accusations. He poured himself a drink at 9 a.m. and another at 9:30. By noon, he was drunk and staring at an old video of his brother. A family vacation. Caleb laughing, running toward the camera, hair wet from the lake, yelling, "Jax, hurry up," as if life would always be like that. Simple, golden, full of air. Jackson smashed the glass against the wall. Blood trickled from his hand. Savannah sat in the nursery, rocking Liam to sleep, humming a lullaby she didn't remember learning. The room smelled of lavender and fresh paint. Jackson had paid for everything: crib, wallpaper, diapers, monitors, but she'd chosen the colors: soft greens and pale yellows. Liam stirred. She kissed his forehead. He looked at her with those ocean eyes. So familiar, so strange. He was her son. She loved him fiercely, but something inside her was beginning to stir, a fear. Jackson had changed, grown quiet, distant, cold again. The warmth that had started to flicker in him during her pregnancy had frozen solid. She couldn't reach him, and part of her didn't want to. He hadn't said a word about what happened after the birth. The way he'd frozen, walked out like he saw a ghost. Something was wrong. Something deeper than fear of fatherhood. She knew it. She could feel it. She tucked Liam into his crib and walked downstairs, determined to confront him. But the penthouse was empty, silent, until she found him on the balcony, barefoot, shirt open, glass in hand, eyes empty. "You're drinking in the middle of the day?" she asked quietly. He didn't look at her. "I've done worse." "What's going on with you?" "You don't want to know." "Try me." Finally, he looked at her, and in his eyes, something cracked. Something raw and ancient and bleeding. "Liam's not mine." The words hit her like a slap. She blinked. "What?" "I had a DNA test done." Tears stung her eyes. You tested him behind my back." He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Her voice shook. "You had no right." "I had every right. I paid you to carry my child, Savannah." That broke something in her. She stepped back, eyes full of fury and heartbreak. "That's all he is to you? A transaction?" "He was supposed to be my redemption," Jackson whispered. "But he's not even mine." "Then whose is he?" she demanded. "Because I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't." And then she stopped. Because suddenly, like a puzzle locking into place, she remembered. A year before Jackson. The summer after her father's second surgery. The stranger by the lake. The man who helped her fix her truck, who sat with her under the stars, who kissed her like the world might end, who disappeared before morning. She never even got his last name. Only his first. "Caleb." She gasped. Jackson saw it. "You knew him," he said, voice hollow. I didn't know him. I didn't even connect." Her hands went to her mouth. He never told me his last name. He disappeared the next day." Jackson turned away. Savannah walked toward him. "You think I did this on purpose? That I planned this?" He didn't answer. "I would never have agreed to this if I had known," she cried. "You have to believe me." "I don't know what to believe," Jackson said. "All I know is that my dead brother fathered a child, and you're the mother." Savannah stumbled back like she'd been slapped. "I didn't know he was your brother," she said, breathless. "Did you know he was dead?" "No." He studied her face, her trembling hands, the horror in her eyes, the sincerity in her voice. It didn't look like a lie, but it felt like betrayal anyway, because everything was unraveling now. The contract, the legacy, the story he told himself, that he could control this, that he could fix his family through this child. Now it was just a lie wrapped in tragedy. And the worst part? He still wanted to hold Liam. He still wanted Savannah to look at him the way she used to. But those days were gone, because Caleb was Liam's father, and Jackson was just a shadow pretending to be real. Savannah didn't sleep that night. Not because Liam cried. He was quiet, peaceful, as if unaware that his existence had detonated the world around him. But because her mind wouldn't stop. It spun like a carousel in flames. She sat on the floor of the nursery, arms around her knees, staring at the crib. The faint blue glow of the nightlight made Liam's features soft, angelic. He had Caleb's eyes, That much she couldn't deny now, and that fact clawed at her from the inside out. The memory came back in flashes. The summer evening near Lake Travis, just over a year ago. Her food truck had broken down on the side of a winding road, the heat blistering. Her phone dead, no help in sight. Then him, a man in a white t-shirt and jeans. Kind eyes, hands that knew how to fix engines. A smile that felt like warmth after a long winter. They'd talked for hours. He never said his last name. Just Caleb. He said he was getting away from something toxic. They made love under the stars, not impulsively, but like something inevitable. Like they were trying to capture something they knew wouldn't last. He vanished the next day. No note, no number, just a memory. She never expected to see him again. Never knew she was pregnant until weeks later, when her father fell ill again and her world began to crumble all over again. She pressed her forehead to her knees. How had she not seen it? How had she not recognized Caleb when she met Jackson? The similarities were there, the jawline, the height, the way they looked at the world like it owed them something. But Jackson's edges were harder. Caleb had been softer, like music. And now Caleb was dead. Or so she thought, until something changed. She didn't know what made her do it. Maybe it was instinct, desperation, or maybe it was fate, knocking softly on the door of her grief. She went to Jackson's penthouse the next day while he was out, Liam in her arms. A lie prepared. She said she'd left something in the upstairs guest room. She waited until the nanny fell asleep on the couch. Then she slipped into Jackson's study. It was a dark, intimidating room, all mahogany and leather, with a fireplace no one used and shelves filled with first editions that probably hadn't been touched. She scanned the room. One drawer in the antique desk was locked. She looked around, then reached up, just above the bookshelf, and found what she hoped she would, a small brass key tucked in a hidden groove. Men like Jackson always had secrets and habits. She unlocked the drawer. Inside were envelopes, a flash drive, several letters from Margot, all written in delicate, vicious cursive, and at the very bottom, a small black leather photo album. It looked old, personal. She opened it, and the world fell out from under her. Because staring back at her was him. Caleb. Same eyes, same smile, same white t-shirt from that night by the lake. Only now, next to him was Jackson. They were brothers. Twins. Not identical, but close enough that anyone who knew one but not the other would have never guessed. Her knees gave out. She sank to the floor, her heart pounding, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the album. Tears streamed down her cheeks. It was true. Everything. She hadn't just met a stranger. She had slept with Jackson Whitmore's brother. She had loved him, in the short, electric way that only happens once, when you think the world might still be kind. And now her son carried his eyes, his soul, his blood. She clutched the photo to her chest and cried, silently, for the man who never said goodbye, and for the new storm she knew was coming. Because if Jackson was this broken from finding out Liam wasn't his, what would he do when he realized she had met Caleb, known him, loved him, without ever knowing the truth? She left the study quietly, didn't take the album, but she took the flash drive, just in case. Later that night, Savannah sat in the kitchen of her apartment, the lights off, Liam asleep in the next room. The flash drive pulsed in her fingers like a secret heartbeat. She plugged it into her laptop. Dozens of files, videos, photos, letters scanned into PDFs. One folder was named Cal 32, Private. Her throat tightened. She opened the first file. It was a video, shaky, grainy, but the voice was clear. Caleb's voice. He looked tired, unshaven, but still beautiful. If you're watching this, he said, I'm probably dead. Or worse, locked away somewhere I can't be found. Savannah's breath caught. Caleb looked over his shoulder, then back at the camera. They think I'm crazy. My mother, she's powerful. You don't know her. You don't understand. She's not just controlling. She erases people. If she finds out about Savannah, about the baby, she'll come for them. I'm trying to get out. Trying to disappear. The video cut off. Savannah's heart stopped. He knew. He knew about her. About the baby. He'd tried to protect them. And he might still be alive. The morning was deceptively beautiful. Blue skies. Cool breeze. Birds singing like nothing in the world had ever broken. Savannah stood outside the gates of the Whitmore estate, Liam in her arms, her heart a hollow drumbeat in her chest. The mansion before her loomed, All white stone and pristine hedges and windows that held secrets like a coffin hold silence. She hadn't come to make peace. She came to demand answers. But before she could buzz the gate, a car pulled up beside her. A black Rolls-Royce. The door opened, and Brooke Carrington stepped out like a villainess descending from her throne. Red stilettos, perfect curls, sunglasses the size of daggers. Savannah stiffened. Brooke smiled. Not kindly. Coming to beg forgiveness or storm the gates? Savannah narrowed her eyes. Neither. Brooke tilted her head, lowering her glasses just enough to pierce. Then you should know something before you go inside. I'm not here to talk to you, but I am here to talk to you. And trust me, after this, you won't look at that house the same way again. Savannah shifted Liam in her arms protectively. Caleb didn't drown, Brooke said casually, like she was commenting on the weather. He ran. Because Margot found out about you. The world blurred. What? 15 years ago, Brooke continued, walking slowly in a circle around Savannah. Caleb fell in love with a girl from the wrong side of everything. He told me once, before the accident. Said she worked in a diner or a truck or something tragic. Sound familiar? Savannah could barely breathe. She was going to ruin everything. A Whitmore mixing with someone like that? Margot was horrified. And when Caleb wouldn't end it, she threatened him. Said she'd make the girl disappear. Or him. Or both. Savannah's knees buckled slightly. But she didn't need to kill him, Brooke added with a poisonous smile. She just needed to make him disappear. And trust me, Margot has always known how to make people vanish. Savannah felt bile rise in her throat. You're lying. I don't lie. I manipulate. There's a difference. Savannah turned to leave. But Brooke's final words followed her like a curse. He didn't die. He was silenced. Inside the mansion, Jackson was pacing the study when Margot entered, a vision in ivory and cruelty. You've lost weight, she said. He ignored her. She sighed, settling into a velvet chair like a queen on trial. I assume this is about her. Her name is Savannah, Jackson snapped. And she's the mother of my nephew. Margot's smile barely moved. Is that what we're calling it now? Nephew? You knew? Of course I knew. Do you think I would have let that bastard child anywhere near our family if I hadn't thought I could still fix it? Jackson's fists clenched. You said Caleb drowned. You said you found him. That he slipped. Margot chuckled, low and bitter. Oh, darling, you needed to believe that. Caleb was soft. He would have given everything away to that girl, the one who smelled like fry oil and desperation. She would have dragged our name into the mud. He loved her. He was weak. You're a monster. No. Margot said, standing. I'm a Whitmore. And that means I protect this family's legacy, even when the rest of you fall apart. Jackson's voice trembled now. Where did you send him? She tilted her head. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. She stepped forward. I locked him in Ridgewood Clinic, under a fake name. He was unstable. I made sure the record said as much. It was easy. Money makes anything possible. You should know that by now. He reeled. He escaped, she added. Eventually. But by then, no one was looking for him. You erased him. I saved us. From what? A child. From disgrace. Jackson's voice cracked. He's alive. Margot didn't flinch. Then pray he stays hidden. Savannah stood in the hallway, hidden just beyond the study doors. She'd heard everything. She didn't wait for more. She ran. Out of the mansion, out of the truth, out of everything she thought she knew. She ran until her legs gave out. And when she collapsed, it wasn't fear that overtook her. It was rage. The door creaked like it hadn't been opened in years. Dust curled in the air. The smell of old money and older secrets clung to the wood-paneled walls like mildew. Savannah followed Henry, the Whitmore family's loyal butler, down the corridor behind the wine cellar. Her pulse echoed in her ears. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Since hearing Margot admit she had locked her own son away, Savannah had been living on adrenaline, caffeine, and rage. Liam slept in her arms, his little face nestled against her chest. He was quiet, almost too quiet, as if he knew his mother was walking through the ghost of something too big to name. Henry looked back. Are you sure about this, Miss Cole? No, she whispered. But I can't live with not knowing. He nodded solemnly, holding up an old brass key. She made me swear I'd never bring anyone here, not even Jackson. But after what she did to Caleb, there's no loyalty left to a monster. The key turned. The door opened, and the truth exhaled. It wasn't a room. It was a vault, one of Margot's many sanctuaries. Inside, floor-to-ceiling shelves, film reels, hard drives, labeled boxes, Caleb, Jackson, Harold, Brooke, and folders marked Ridgewood, the name of the clinic. Savannah's knees nearly gave out. Henry steadied her. This is where she kept the files. All of them. The lives she destroyed. The people she silenced. I helped build it. I thought I was protecting the family, but I was just keeping her throne clean. She moved toward the box labeled Caleb. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside, photos, newspaper clippings, doctor's notes, fake prescriptions, and a small silver USB drive. Henry looked away as she pocketed it. You didn't see this, she said. I never see anything anymore, he murmured. Back at her apartment, Savannah plugged the drive into her laptop with shaking hands. The folder was titled Patient 003, C. Whitmore. She clicked. A video opened. The screen flickered, then stabilized. Caleb, strapped to a chair, eyes sunken, beard overgrown, a small bruise on his temple. He looked drugged, but he was alive. Today is, he squinted. I don't know what day it is. They keep me here. I don't know where I am. I think it's a clinic. There's a nurse named Rhonda. She's kind. She whispers when she gives me the wrong meds. Savannah's chest clenched. I miss her, Caleb mumbled. The girl by the lake. The one with the soft eyes. I never got her name, but she had a laugh like wind chimes. I think about her. Every day, I think she saved me. Even if it was only one night. I wanted to run with her, but I was afraid. I thought if I left, they'd kill her. He looked directly into the camera. If she ever sees this, tell her I'm sorry. Then the screen went black. Savannah sobbed so hard she nearly dropped the laptop. It was him. It was her. They were real. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't a mistake. And neither was Liam. The next morning, Savannah knocked on Jackson's door with fire in her eyes. He answered looking hollow, as if guilt had carved him out from the inside. When he saw her, he tensed. I need to show you something, she said. He stepped aside. She walked in and played the video. Silence. Jackson stood there, frozen, watching his brother's face flicker across the screen like a haunting. He's alive, Savannah whispered. He was alive after you buried him. Jackson sat down slowly. He tried to speak, but couldn't. She placed the USB in his hand. This is your chance, she said, to stop being your mother's son and start being your brother's keeper. And she left. That night, Savannah sat in Liam's nursery, staring at the stars outside. Henry had given her one more thing before she left the mansion, a name, a facility, a location. One Rhonda, the nurse Caleb mentioned, had written in a secret letter. He'd hidden it inside a copy of the Count of Monte Cristo. The address was in Arizona. Savannah traced the name with her finger. It wasn't over. It had just begun. Savannah hadn't slept in 36 hours. She was halfway through Arizona, just miles beyond Phoenix, where the air shimmered with heat and the desert stretched on like a graveyard of broken time. Her hair stuck to her neck. Her throat was dry. Liam cried in short, confused bursts, like he could feel that something enormous, something soul-shifting, was about to happen. She gripped the wheel tighter. She had one address, one name, a lead from Henry's files. Caleb Whitmore, registered under alias David C. Monroe. Last sighting, Wickenburg, Arizona. Working in a body shop under the name Dave. She parked outside a crumbling garage on the edge of town. It smelled like motor oil and regret. An old man watched her from the shade with suspicion. Dogs barked somewhere far away. Her heart pounded as she walked toward the building, Liam strapped to her chest. Can I help you? A man asked, the shop's owner. I'm looking for someone. David Monroe. The man narrowed his eyes. Dave? He's out back. Her breath caught. Can I see him? He hesitated. He doesn't do well with people. PTSD, I think. Keeps to himself. I won't be long, she whispered. She walked slowly, each step like walking across glass. Liam stirred, cooed softly. And then she saw him, bent over an engine, shirtless, back scarred, hair longer now, bearded, sunburnt, alive. Her knees almost gave out. He didn't notice her at first, but then he looked up, and the wrench fell from his hand. His mouth opened, closed. He took a step forward, as if afraid she was a mirage. You, Savannah's voice trembled. I found you. His hands were shaking, his eyes wild. I thought you were a dream. I thought you never existed. I'm real, she whispered. And then she pulled Liam closer, and Caleb's world broke. He stared at the baby, Those eyes. His eyes. He stumbled back, breath stolen. No, he murmured. No, no. His name is Liam, she said, tears falling. And he's yours. Caleb fell to his knees and wept. Hours passed. They sat under the tin roof of the shop's back shed. Caleb hadn't stopped shaking. I couldn't stay, he whispered. They were going to kill you. I heard them. My mother. She said if I didn't disappear, she'd destroy you. She had me locked up in some place. They told me you were dead, that I imagined you, that it was just a psychotic break. Savannah held his hand. She lied. I escaped. Changed my name. I've been hiding ever since. I thought if I came back, she'd find you. Or worse, find the baby. She already knows, Savannah said. His eyes went wide. No, she's done worse since. Jackson told me everything. Caleb flinched at the mention of his brother's name. I thought he was gone, Caleb said. Or turned into her. He tried, Savannah said. But he couldn't keep it up. Caleb's face fell as he looked at Liam. I missed everything. Not everything. He looked up. You can still be his father, she said. If you're ready. Caleb took Liam in his arms, gently, like he was holding the last fragile piece of himself. Liam blinked up at him and reached for his beard. Caleb laughed, short, choked, overwhelmed. Hey, little man. Savannah turned her face to the sun and let herself cry. Not for pain, but for the miracle of this moment. Jackson showed up the next morning. He didn't know what to expect, but what he found stunned him. Caleb, alive, holding Liam. Savannah standing beside him. They were a picture, one that made Jackson feel both relief and grief. Caleb froze. You came. Jackson nodded, his throat tight. I had to see for myself. The brothers stared at each other, years of silence hanging between them like a blade. I never wanted your life, Caleb said. I never blamed you, Jackson whispered. Caleb looked away. I did. They didn't hug. They weren't those kind of brothers. But they stood close. Close enough for forgiveness to settle between them. I was going to raise him, Jackson said quietly. I know, Caleb replied. He made me feel like I could be good. Caleb looked at him, tears in his eyes. He made me believe I was still alive. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was healing. Later that night, Savannah walked out behind the garage to find Caleb standing alone under the stars. You okay? She asked. He nodded. I don't deserve this. You don't get to decide that, she said. He looked at her. Do you still love me? She didn't hesitate. I never stopped. Caleb kissed her, soft and trembling, and the desert wind wrapped around them like a second chance. It began with an invitation, an ivory envelope, no return address, just a handwritten note in looping script. Family matters must be settled under one roof. Bring the boy, bring the truth, or everything burns. Savannah read it twice. Her fingers trembled. Jackson stood across from her in the motel kitchen, silent, pale. He knew the handwriting, knew the tone. She's not bluffing, he said. If she says she'll burn it all, she will. Caleb sat at the table, holding Liam protectively. His jaw clenched. Then let's give her what she wants. You don't understand, Jackson said. My mother doesn't lose. If she senses a trap, she won't just strike back. She'll take down everyone with her. Savannah stepped forward. Then it ends now. The Whitmore estate stood like a monument to cruelty. White walls, grand gates, polished marble hiding the rot inside. Cameras, reporters, drones hovered just outside the fence line. Margot had called the press herself. She wanted a performance. Inside, the grand parlor had been transformed into a courtroom of power. Crystal chandeliers gleamed overhead. Champagne was chilling. Staff lined the walls like ghosts. And Margot Whitmore, draped in black lace, stood at the center, a queen about to be dethroned. When Savannah entered with Liam in her arms, Caleb by her side, and Jackson a step behind, the room held its breath. Margot's eyes narrowed. Her voice coiled like a serpent. Welcome home. You called us here to talk, Jackson said, stepping forward. Then talk. I called you here, she said, to give you a chance to undo the shame you've all brought upon this family. That child, she pointed at Liam, is not a Whitmore. He will never inherit. He will never belong. Caleb stepped in front of Savannah. I'm still your son. You were, until you chose to betray your blood. Savannah's voice shook with fury. He didn't betray anyone. You locked him away. You drugged him. You buried him alive. Margot's face didn't move. He was ill, unstable. He was in love. Caleb shouted. With a woman you couldn't control. Margot's eyes flickered, just for a moment. Then she turned to the reporters. "You want the truth?" she said, smiling coldly. "Here it is. My son ran away from this family, abandoned his responsibilities, chose a life of shame over duty, and now they want to drag us all into their filth." "You're lying," Jackson said. "Am I?" she asked, eyes burning. "Didn't you lie too? Paid a woman to bear you a child? Lied to your father? Lied to the board? You think I'm the monster? I'm the reason you still have a name." Henry stepped forward from the shadows, trembling with something like joy and grief. "I think it's time they heard the real truth," he said. He handed Savannah a sealed manila envelope. Inside, the original DNA tests, the footage of Caleb in the clinic, records, audio, her entire empire, documented and damning. Jackson walked over to the podium and opened the envelope in front of the cameras. Reporters surged forward. Cameras clicked like gunfire. "This," he said, "is what power built. Not success, not legacy, just pain." Margot's face cracked, just slightly. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I already did," Jackson said. "The board has the documents. The estate's trustees have copies. This house is no longer yours. You're done." Something broke in Margot then, and she screamed. No, she lunged, not at them, but at the fireplace. She grabbed a vial from the mantel, something hidden, prepared, and threw it into the flames. The fire roared. Gasoline. The blaze spread in an instant, racing up the curtains, over the paintings, across the walls. Panic erupted. Staff screamed. The chandelier began to crack. "Get out," Henry shouted. Savannah held Liam close, heart pounding. Jackson grabbed her hand. Caleb grabbed her other. The three ran, through the inferno, through smoke, through choking heat and crumbling walls. Margot stood in the middle of it all, watching it burn. Her eyes wet with tears, not of sorrow, but defiance. "I told you," she whispered. "I'd rather watch it all die than let you win." And the ceiling collapsed behind her. Outside, firefighters rushed in. Paramedics shouted. Savannah coughed, gasping for air, Liam still in her arms. Jackson fell to his knees, eyes locked on the flames. "It's over," Caleb said. Jackson shook his head. "It's never over." Henry approached, carrying something wrapped in a fireproof cloth. "The documents," he said. "I saved them." Savannah fell into his arms and wept, not for Margot, not for what was lost, but for what might finally begin. It was quiet now, too quiet. For the first time in months, Savannah could hear the wind in the trees, the bird song in the mornings, the creak of the old swing on the porch of the little farmhouse they now called home. There were no drones buzzing overhead, no reporters at the gate, no lawyers breathing down their necks. Just sunlight, Liam's laughter, and the quiet sound of healing. The past had scorched them, but it hadn't destroyed them. Caleb stood in the kitchen, barefoot, shirtless, smiling at the sound of their son babbling as he played with a wooden spoon. His scars were still there, on his back, on his heart. But Savannah had watched him slowly start to live again. The light in his eyes no longer flickered. It stayed. Savannah came in with flowers from the field, sunflowers, wild roses, chamomile. She placed them in a chipped glass jar beside the sink. "You're early," Caleb said, wrapping his arms around her. "I wanted to see this," she whispered. "You, him, this." They kissed, soft, slow, steady. It wasn't fireworks anymore. It was home. Later that afternoon, Jackson arrived. He parked at the edge of the gravel path and walked slowly toward the porch. He looked smaller now, not physically, but spiritually. The weight of Margot's crimes, the loss of the Whitmore legacy, the shame of what he'd tried to build, all of it had carved him into someone quieter, more human. Caleb came out first, Liam in his arms. Jackson's breath caught at the sight of them. Savannah followed, expression unreadable. They stood in silence for a moment. Three adults connected by blood, by betrayal, by a child who had been the lightning bolt between all of them. Jackson finally spoke. "I came to say goodbye." Savannah's lips parted. "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet," Jackson said. "Somewhere quieter. Somewhere I'm not a Whitmore." "You're still his uncle," Caleb said, gently. Jackson's eyes shimmered. "I'd like to write to him, if that's allowed." Savannah nodded. "It is." Jackson knelt down, looking at Liam. "You were never mine, but you taught me how to feel again, and that might have saved my life." Liam reached out and touched Jackson's face. Jackson smiled through tears. "Goodbye, little man." He stood, looked at Caleb. "There's a version of this where we hated each other forever," Jackson said. Caleb gave him a long look. "But that's not this version." They shook hands. No longer enemies. Just men trying to be more than what they were born into. That evening, Caleb rocked Liam to sleep while Savannah watched from the doorway. "He'll always have people who love him," she whispered. "He already does." "And you?" He looked up. "Me? Do you still love me, after everything?" Caleb stood, crossed the room, and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. "I don't love you despite everything," he said. "I love you because of everything. Every fire, every lie, every mile I walked thinking I'd never see you again." She closed her eyes, letting that truth wrap around her like a blanket. "You could have chosen a different life," she whispered. "So could you. But we didn't." "No," he said. "We chose each other." And just when everything seemed still, just when the air had cleared and the sun had begun to set behind the fields of wildflowers, there was a knock at the door. Savannah froze. Caleb held his breath. She opened it, and there she was, Brooke Carrington, pregnant, radiant, dangerous. "Hi," she said with that famous movie star smile. "Jackson's not here, is he?" Savannah's voice was ice. "No." Brooke placed a manicured hand on her belly. "Shame. Because this one, it's his. This time, for real." She turned on her heel and walked away, leaving nothing but silence behind her. Savannah closed the door. The storm was coming again. But this time, she was ready. If this story left your heart racing, your eyes teary, or your soul screaming, no puede ser. Don't leave without letting us know. Drop a comment below telling us what moment shocked you the most, who your favorite character was, and what you think should happen next. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another twist, betrayal, or forbidden love. This is just the beginning, and we want you with us every step of the drama.